Afternoon, good morning, wherever you may be. And my name is Mahesh Subramanian. I am the Senior Solutions Engineer for D12. I am based out of Chennai, India. I am being supported by Moses Lim, my co-conspirator in the solution engineering space. He is based out of Singapore. And we have our head of marketing, Sakshi, who is based out of India in Delhi. Right? So let's begin. And if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A, and we will try to answer them as we go along. Right? So what I plan to do is we've got about 45 minutes today. I'm trying to see if we can I can talk for about 30 minutes, right? And at the end of 30 minutes, let me open it up for some Q&A based on any feedback that you can provide us. Okay, let's get started. Now, to begin with, right, I'd like to start setting some context in terms of what is hybrid learning. Uh, what are we going to talk today? Right? So, one is I thought let's get the hybrid learning concept understood, set the context for that. What role it is currently playing in the current scenario right now that we are in, right? And what are the strategies and advantages that hybrid learning can bring into education today? Plus, at the end of the day, hybrid learning is highly dependent on a digital transformation exercise that organizations need to take. Now, I say the word organization, but because as we go through this information, you will see that I'm going to be talking about three distinct verticals that we look at from a learning standpoint. Okay. So let's begin. Now, the entire concept of hybrid learning comes from the fact that uh, we are able to go now online. Technology enables us to go online with content. Institutions, K-12, higher education, even corporates, when they do learning, typically everything was classroom based, right? So 100% in a traditional brick and mortar classroom. Now, there are some places where even in a brick and mortar situation, you may be using a little bit of technology in the classroom, but the the next step was typically going online. You deliver content to supplement learning in the classroom. And now what we have done is we have now come to a place where we have online learning, the more and more online learning that's happening in our institutions today. Now, let me go to my next slide. So I'd like to create some definitions on what I'm talking about today. Now, we do sometimes use the word blended learning and hybrid learning quite interchangeably. There's a fair amount of difference to the two. Right? So blended learning is where you are using online resources, right? Typically like self-paced content, audio, video, right? PDFs, Word documents, but that's typically used to supplement the classroom or face-to-face instruction. Right? So typically trying to do a flipped classroom model. You have students go home, or you have students go online, uh, read up something, come back and discuss in the classroom. It is still online. You still have a face-to-face component available in the blended learning space. Now, when we move into hybrid learning, right, the focus of today's webinar, and the fact that hybrid learning is probably going to be here to stay, hybrid learning is a 50-50. Simply put, it's me as a teacher taking a class with 50% of my students in the classroom. Right? I'm saying I'm using the word 50%. I'm using the term 50% because currently with the pandemic raging, and in a few countries where children are back in school, there are protocols which require the school to ensure that only 50% of the classroom is in the classroom at any point in time, right? So the remaining 50% could be left out because instruction is not happening at the same time. Now this is where hybrid learning comes into play. Hybrid learning. The next, my next slide is actually uh, a very nice graphic about what hybrid learning really is, right? So as you can see, I have a few students in my class. I'm going to say 50%, right? I have the remainder of the 50% who are online. The medium of instruction is going to be a technology-based platform, right? So the technology-based platform provides the ability to uh, present in the classroom using a presenter, uh, and at the same time impart the same information to the students who are online. So you have your 50-50 mix, right? Now the the advantage of this is the fact that this is one lecture happening at the same time, but taking care of all the students who are either online or in the classroom. Right now, so in terms of what hybrid learning is from a definition standpoint, uh, it's something that combines the face-to-face with the online teaching experience, but it puts it into one cohesive experience. So none of the students are disadvantaged because they are not in the classroom or they are online, right? So there is a bit of equity in the entire classroom structure, irrespective of where you are. So it is taking traditional classroom methods, traditional classroom experiences, and using digital delivery, course delivery, right? And achieving the same level of competencies or objectives, or as we are now looking at it from a learning outcomes perspective, it gives the ability to uh, create that entire experience for uh, for everyone, including the teacher who is imparting the training. Now, in terms of, I mean, why are we talking about hybrid learning today? I think the pandemic has created a situation where institutions have been forced to go online. That's one of the key factors that have brought in hybrid learning. Um, but going online has not been able to replace the classroom experience, right? And in a learning and training perspective, it is important that there is a fair amount of face-to-face with the teacher or faculty to be able to achieve that empathetic connection that uh, a student and teacher achieve, which is very important for the achievement of learning to happen in the classroom. Now, so in terms of how hybrid learning plays a role, right? I mean, you can actually see, I mean, this slide typically gives you the reason why we're there, why we're here today. Uh, we are looking at a new normal. We don't know when and if we are going back to the old normal, right? Where we go back to a full online, a full traditional brick and mortar classroom. And the interesting aspect of that is, even if we are able to go back to a full traditional classroom model, I think the learnings from the last 2 years has given us enough information to see that online learning actually does provide a fair advantage over the traditional methods of face-to-face learning. So I'm not saying that we're going to go completely online. Right? I'm not going to say we're going completely classroom. All I'm saying is they're going completely hybrid now. Now, when I talk about hybrid learning, I am primarily talking from a K-12 or a K-12 or a higher education perspective. But at the same time, uh, hybrid learning can also be used in the corporations, right, organizations, especially when it comes to skilling, upskilling, and cross-skilling of employees, right, that allows an organization to grow and focuses on its most important resource. It's people. Now, in terms of, I mean, if you're an institution, uh, you probably have been using either a blended learning model or a hybrid learning model or both over the last 2 years. Uh, it's possible that you may be also looking at how you can take this a little further in terms of once the pandemic is over, and is it possible to use the learnings from the last 2 years and continue. Now, when we look at that, there are a few strategies that we believe are important for student engagement. Right? So the idea is to make sure that um, we have a clear path to using hybrid learning. It's not something we do by accident. It's not something we do by force. We are trying to build we're trying to build a strategy to ensure that hybrid learning works. Learning works in the long term as well. Right? Now, these strategies that you see on the slide, they are not uh, they are not the full gamut of strategies uh, that we can use. But what I have done is I've sort of put together the 5 topmost strategies that I believe, based on our experience with working with customers in the learning space, on what we believe actually helps in engaging with students better. Right? So the first one is virtual classes. Uh, do you have a virtual classroom tool? Now, if you have a virtual classroom tool, obviously engages students effectively because um, the ability to present within the classroom and also uh, transmit that same information to students online. It does now allow you to allow your students to collaborate. Now, if I had 50% of my students in class and 50% outside, say they come in alternate days, collaboration is limited to that one group that comes into the classroom, because it's very difficult for a teacher to be able to deliver the same lesson or lecture in exactly the same way on 2 different days. But in this case, I've got a virtual classroom tool, allows me to transmit information to both sets of my students. But when a virtual classroom tool is integrated, right, with an application like Brightspace. Brightspace is D2L's learning management system, right? So when it's deeply integrated into an application like Brightspace, what it does is it allows you to work around the virtual classroom, provide the experiences that you need, that your students need, and will be able to ensure that they are engaged in the classroom itself. Now, uh, the second concept is if if you're running a lecture and it's just a static lecture, there's not a lot of student activity. But in an online learning medium, right, you are able to assign assignments to students, experiential learning assignments to students, right? So students are actually doing an activity rather than just reading a book uh, and looking through three. Right? So the student involvement is higher when there is a need to when there's a creation of a need to know with the students. And um, because uh, you need to be very clear when you go into the online medium, you do set goals, you set smart goals, you create a learning path to achieve those goals. Now, in the case of Brightspace, right, I'm using Brightspace as an example because uh, that's the most familiar learning management system that I know, right? Uh, and Brightspace actually allows you to do both competency-based education and and outcome-based education. Now, when you have both these standards available, you can pick and choose, but it allows you to set those goals that you need, allows you to measure those goals, monitor, and provide feedback to your students completely online. So even if my students are in the classroom, I can provide everything online. My students still have access to the platform, and get the information that they need in a timely manner. And because online learning allows for differential paths for learning, I can create a personalized learning path for my students. So typically what I do is I use automation within the platform. Right? Uh, Within Brightspace, we have what are called release conditions. Release conditions allow me to create 2 or 3 different paths for the slow learner, the fast learner, and everybody in between. Right? So I'm able to do it automatically. I don't need to go in and set it up every now and then. It's a setup once. Uh, it is a it is a run every time, right? And you keep tweaking it based on every class or every set of students that you are delivering these courses to. And the I would say um, the bedrock of hybrid learning or online learning, right, is the ability to use technology as an enabler. And the last 2 years has shown us that technology does make things easy. Right? I'm not going to say that it is without its challenges, but it does make things a lot easier. I mean, a very simple example is we've been using mobile phones for the last say 10, 15, 20 years. Right now, before that, there were no mobile phones. So if you think of life before mobile phones were available, you begin to understand how things have become easy for us, right? And as we progress down the online learning path, uh, as we start using some of the capabilities of online learning to deliver, say, blended learning and hybrid learning, it makes it important that we understand the capabilities of technology, understand how technology can help us. And I think the 2 main areas where technology helps us is anywhere learning, right? Anywhere, anytime learning. Students can learn anywhere. They don't have to be in a classroom. They don't have to be at home, right? They can read on the way home, on the way from home to the school, right? And there is a fair amount of focused attention because the entire screen is occupied by content. Content is the key that the student is focused on, and the ability to the ability to create uh, what we would call a a clear path for the student, not only to go through content, but to provide assignments, to submit the quizzes, and to get the feedback in an efficient manner makes it easy to keep that student engaged, because you as a teacher are focused on every student because technology does allow you to do that, and the student feels connected to you as a teacher through the platform, right? Now, I wanted to look at the advantages of hybrid learning before I went to a little bit of statistics about how hybrid learning can really help in the or can and is helping in the current situation. Right? Now, uh, in terms of uh, being able to set goals, you can track learning outcomes or competencies. Now, I'm using the word learning outcomes more often because we are moving to a world where learning outcomes is becoming the default standard. Right? So you can set, track, monitor, and provide feedback on learning outcomes. You can create personalized learning paths. Automation, so like I said, release conditions in Brightspace gives you the ability to set content to be released based on specific criteria. So I can do it once, and I create a personalized learning path for my student. It provides flexibility in terms of I can learn anywhere. Second is I can ask questions from anywhere. And the most important thing is teachers and faculty can respond with the same ease of flexibility. They have the ability to be able to respond at any time. I mean, some communications are asynchronous, some communications are synchronous. But at the key is the ability to be flexible and learn at your own pace. Like I said, instant feedback is available on a learning platform. I can have feedback come back to me immediately. And when I look at how I'm doing in the course, right? I can take assessments like assignments or quizzes, tests typically, and I get instant information about how well I've done it. What are the areas that I'm lacking, and I also get redirected to content within my LMS that gives me the ability to look at improving the scores that I've got. Right, my understanding of the content itself. In terms of academic achievement, I have the ability to produce awards, certificates quite automatically within the application. And like I mentioned, the previous slide was primarily based on how to engage with students. Now, the more connect an application can provide you, a learning management system can provide you, the better the student engagement is. And in terms of Brightspace, we are a platform that ensures that there is an empathetic connection between the teacher and the student at all times. Right? It's not like I come to a web page, I take a course, and I have no idea of who my faculty is. Right? I don't leave without I don't leave with any connection to what I've learned. And without a connection, learning is not retained. And a hybrid learning model gives you the ability to save time. You got, like I said today, in today's world, when we have 50-50 breakup of the classroom, I can still finish my curriculum through the year because every class consists of 100% of the classes. I don't have to worry about missing out on 50% on a daily basis, right? It's not necessarily 50%, but as we go forward this year and the next, we are going to see some students willing to come back to the classroom, some students who are willing to still stay at home and learn simply because they feel it is safer. Until this pandemic is officially closed by the authorities. And what it does is it ensures that there is equity in participation by the students. In terms of some learning facts, right? I mean, in terms of how does hybrid learning help you with regards to student completion rate, etc. Now, we found that these are all statistics taken from the last few years, not just the last 2 years. We find that because people are learning online and because they're able to learn at their own pace, there is a 25 to 60% increase in information retention when learning online. I mean, when I say learning online, I'm talking about both the hybrid and the online learning model. Okay? So 25 to 60% of information retention is available when you do learning online. Now this is against 8 to 10% when you use a classroom model, when you do a brick and mortar classroom, traditional classroom model, and you're looking at having to go back and build that engagement or stickiness in students as a part of that the traditional classroom methods. There is also a 40 to 60% reduction in absorption time. So because of the way content is developed for the online medium, because e-learning content can be broken down into bite-sized chunks, right? So what we call learning nuggets, there is a 40 to 60% lower absorption rate. That's a good thing at the end of the day. right? You're able to quickly go through content that would have taken longer time when you're doing it in the traditional classroom. Now, when it comes to institutions today, right, we understand that institutions are still not completely many institutions are still not completely comfortable with the online models, right? But with the way the world is moving today, right, with what we have learned from the last 2 years, the information that we've got tells us that, practically speaking, the online platforms or learning management systems, right, do contribute to uh, better uh, better information retention, better absorption, right, and providing equity to students, especially now that uh, we have the situation that we have today. But for an institution to be able to build an effective hybrid learning model, right, to be able to impart education online, uh, there are what we call the 6 pillars of digital transformation. Right? So these are the 6 pillars that are required to be taken when you're trying to digitally transform your institution into the online education space. Now, in my opinion, the word digital transformation actually has got nothing to do with digital or transformation. It's got to do everything with people. People are the key of any transformation exercise. So, uh, in terms of the 6 pillars, right? So we have the ability to build. So you need to build the experiences that you need, that you're looking for in the hybrid learning model. People are key. So identify champions. Make sure that they're able to contribute to the dissemination of how things can be done effectively in the online space, especially in the hybrid space, right? Which then begins the transformation exercise. A transformation is typically about change. When we talk about change, we're talking about changing people's approach to traditional models, to what they're used to, getting them into a reskilling and upskilling sort of mode. Right? It is important for innovation to happen at every stage of the transformation exercise. The way the world is today, technology does not stand still. You have improvements on a daily basis, and the uh, the important thing is that we keep innovating, not only in terms of the technology we use, but also in terms of ensuring that people stay skilled with the new technologies that happen. Right? Now, let's take to give an example. Before I talk about the remaining 2 pillars, let's take Brightspace. Now, Brightspace is a learning management system by D2L, has been around for 21 years. Right? We have more than 2 decades of experience in this space. Now, we pride ourselves on being a learning company rather than a technology company. We are using technology to enable learning in the institutional space. Now, what we have done is we have kept pace with the technology advancements that are happening on a daily basis. So 20 years ago, when the company was started, technology was still very nascent, especially the online world. But what we have done is, over the last 20 years, we have re-architected our system 5, 6 times to keep in tune with the ability for innovation to happen within the application, for us to enable innovation uh, in our client institutions, right? And we believe that contributes to the 1,500 customers that we have globally and the 20 million users that are using the platform. Now, this 20 million is based on pre-COVID numbers. You're yet to receive the post-COVID numbers, if you may want to call it. And the important thing is that we have been able to keep pace with the demand that uh, the the institutions have put on the platform. So when institutions went completely online without a hiccup, right, without a pause, we have been able to keep pace with the growing demand. Right? So that's where I believe innovation comes in, because we need to keep pace with what's happening in the outside world. And when you are partnered with an application like Brightspace, you are confident that you are getting the latest technology, the latest capability. And like I said, because we are a learning company, we also focus on making sure that uh, learning is the center of all innovation that happens on Brightspace. And in terms of the 6 pillars, the next one is leadership. So as an institution, there are two ways to do digital transformation. One is you do a bottoms up approach, the other is a top down approach. But we've always found that leadership is important, because with a leadership that is engaged with the digital transformation exercise, the most important aspect of the digital transformation exercise, building a technology culture within the institution, comes from that leadership. So once you've got a culture of innovation and change happening in the institution, what happens is it is easy for you to be able to bring in newer technologies, newer ideas, newer models that will be accepted by the both by the teachers, the students, and also by the administrators and leadership in the institution. And so, uh, what I'd like to do is, uh, as we come to the end of uh, this webinar, I mean, we kept it short. We didn't want to talk for too long. We wanted to see what your feedback is. But I'd like to close my presentation with going back to this slide, right? Going back to this image. This is an image we would like you to take home, because this is this is what hybrid learning is all about. Can you build the equity that you need within an institution to make sure that all the students are equally educated, and they all have the same ability to contribute, collaborate, and learn in the institution at the same time? Whether it's because of the pandemic, or because we are slowly moving towards an online space, right? It's important to understand that hybrid learning is here to stay. uh, you will have, I'm sure that you will have some students who are probably looking at continuing to learn at home, but connected to the classroom, simply because it helps them. Because, I mean, in today's world, we have to understand that all students are not are not equipped the same way. So I'd like to close the webinar at this point, and would
Mahesh.
like to hear from you on any questions that you may have.
Yeah,
We've got about 14, I think about 11, 12 minutes left.
Mahesh,
Yes,
I
Manish.
think
Yes,
there
Manish.
are some questions that I thought it would be good to bring up.
Yep.
I've answered some of them, typed out one of them, I think. There's one question from Nalini from DAV Public School in Chennai. And the question says, how could group experiential learning activities be conducted to the other 50 students in hybrid learning, or science practicals to be conducted to them? How do you engage the other 50 when it's happening offline? Please explain.
So the ability for a I'm going to use Brightspace as an example. The ability for Brightspace LMS to provide you support for experiential learning, right? It's a platform that is designed to help that, to help do that. So what you can do is you can create a video. For example, you can show your students how something is to be done. Capture that video on the platform, and because we are mobile responsive as well, right? We are available on the mobile. You can do this completely from your mobile device. And what happens is now you've got a nice video that tells students exactly what to do. You can have students in the classroom conduct the same experiment, but you can also have students online participate in that, because if the experiment or the learning activity requires them to do something, a student can also capture video of themselves doing the same thing, say at home or wherever they are, submit it back to the platform, and you as a teacher can then go and evaluate that activity that the student has completed. Right? We'll be pleased to show you how this is done on Brightspace. I mean, it's not something that we would like to bring into this session. It takes a little longer to show you how to set context and all that. But the Brightspace platform is typically geared to help, especially in the experiential learning space, not just in the traditional curriculums that somebody's going to be.
And there's a follow-up question from SM Wong: how to conduct hybrid class from home for, say, science subjects. I guess to Mahesh's point, I think he has kind of given an example of such kind of tools, right? Being able to record an activity and submit it up. So I guess that's something that you can consider for. Hopefully that helps answer your question, SM Wong. And also another interesting question is this hybrid learning. With hybrid learning, can this be used as recording a recorded one if students lose connectivity?
Absolutely. I mean, when you are running a virtual classroom through a platform like Brightspace, you can record the session while you are running the classroom. Now, not only when the student loses connectivity, but let's assume that students sit through your entire online classroom. Because it's recorded, they can go back and look at the recording at any point in time. If a student does lose connectivity, recording still happens. It still remains on the platform. The student can then come back and continue from where they left off.
And then there's a question from Casey. What are the advantages of Brightspace over Google Classroom?
Okay, that's a tough question to answer, simply because Google Classroom is a collection of. Google typically has developed a suite of services. So they have documents, they have presentations, uh, they have, say, the Google Drive to store information. And what they've done is they've stitched it together into what they call Google Classroom. Right? It is effective to a certain level, but when you look at something like Brightspace, Brightspace actually supports all the pedagogical models that you would use in a classroom. It actually enables the same kind of learning that happens in the classroom completely online, with a few advantages as well. And you have all your content in one place. It is one single application that you are logged into. Everything is available through the application, and you have access to all of this information at any point in time. I mean, not saying that Google is not, but what happens is you're typically doing a single sign-on into multiple applications in the Google Classroom space.
Okay, more questions, and they're from Runa. there are some activities which need hands-on experience so that the ones who do online classes, they do not get to touch and feel the experiment. Furthermore, such equipment might not be available at home. How do you manage that?
I mean, I totally agree with you. There are
Hmm.
some activities that you cannot do at home, right? But um, let's take a hybrid classroom, right? So let's say I have a class of 50 people. I got 25 students in my class. I have 25 students who are online. Now, I could run the exercise of how that activity is done through the hybrid model. Have 25% of my class, I mean, have 25 students in my class do the experiment or activity because the uh, uh, the equipment is available in the classroom. And then the next time that you have the remaining 25 students come in, they can then use that recorded session and go ahead and complete the activity as well. Uh, it is important that we understand that not everything can be used in the hybrid model. I think Moses would like to also say something on that.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with Mahesh. I mean, there are things that certain types of activities that will never be, cannot be replaced by any kind of an LMS, like what you've mentioned, the touch and feel. It's not something that you can have the experience. So the idea is that where possible, you tend to want to have that kind of activities that you build that you can place on an LMS, so that not only you can have a hybrid kind of model, there's also the part where you can track all the learning and the analytics that come along with it. Definitely, I agree with Runa that there's not going to be everything that can be done with the within an LMS itself, especially the part where you that you've mentioned about touching and feeling. The same thing goes, right? I mean, there are parts where certain things that can't be done, like having a lab equipment. I'm pretty sure that lab equipment cannot be something that you have placed that you can place at home, and it's also can be hazardous to have. Example in the situation of chemistry, you can't have those kind of lab kind of environment within a home environment, right? So that's definitely something that you can't have within this kind of setup. So definitely the not something that you can replace anyway. Yeah. Okay. I think we're at the
I have
uh,
a question
yeah.
from Kirti, which says, I want to understand what kind of accessibility
Hmm.
support is provided. Now, Brightspace is a WCAG compliant application. There are three levels of compliance for WCAG: A, AA, and AAA. We are A and AA compliant across the entire application, and there are many features or functionality of the application which is also AAA compliant. We could provide you more information on all of that, and we could actually also show that to you as part of a more focused demo. And we do take accessibility very important, very seriously, because we actually have a chief accessibility officer in D2L who has a vast experience in accessibility and how to bring it to an online application. So every functional piece of functionality, every upgrade, every new feature that is added to Brightspace goes through our accessibility compliance as well. I have uh, a question that says, could you show the slides before strategies to maximize student engagement again? I believe this is the slide you're looking at, or is it some other slide you're talking about? If you let us know, we can move the slide as well. And from Mrs. Uma Venkatraman, we have, will hybrid learning be possible for smaller strength classes? Yes, yes, you can take, I mean, hybrid learning can even work for 3 or 4 students if you want. I have 3 students here, I have 3 students online. Will there be a trend that an instructor's technological proficiency will be more pivotal to compensation determination than actual content competency? See, I strongly believe that a teacher's primary competency is the course that they deliver, the pedagogy that they use, and the ability to engage with students. Now, how they do that in the classroom or online is completely up to them. I mean, they are now using hybrid models. I know that many teachers are using it for the first time, but I believe that technology can be learned. Just like we learn how to use a mobile phone, I think technology can be learned. But the actual teaching capability of a teacher is something that needs more time to develop over a technology competency.
If there are some further questions, and we could try to answer as we go along. I think we're at the end of the webinar.
I think we are,
Kirti,
yeah,
we'll,
we're
we'll, we'll-
overshooting our time. What we could do is we
yeah,
could take these questions and send them out to you as a written response.
yes. And also, if you go to the last slide again, please, Mahesh. Now, don't forget, there's also an email address at the last line. If you want to know more about Brightspace, the LMS itself, you want to explore its features, and if you want to get in touch, use that email, and we'll be able to schedule additional time to help you understand more about Brightspace LMS. All right. Okay. Anything that you want to add? Anything else you want to add, Mahesh?
Not right now. I'd like to thank everybody for taking part in the webinar and asking all these very interesting questions. I do understand that this is a great topic to have taken, and it's a pleasure for me to be actually able to present such a topic to you. And as Moses said, if you have any more questions or you'd like to know more about how hybrid learning can be brought into your institution, please reach out to avi.pardakar@t2l.com. He will be able to put you in touch with the right set of people to then take a conversation forward in being able to adopt technology within the institution. So once again, I'd like to thank you all, and we will try to answer all the remaining questions and send them back to you as part of the follow-up from this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Have a great day, great evening, great afternoon.
Let's get started. Good afternoon.